Hey folks, it's Ray at DCRainmaker.com here, and today I'm going to run through 6 new features on the Peloton platform that they just announced this past weekend. Now these features are across all of their devices as well as the Peloton app, with the exception of one. We'll talk about that in just a second. You can use the YouTube chapters along the bottom right there to find the feature you're most interested in and dive into that in more detail. So the first feature is a complete revamp of the Scenic rides. Now if you've never gone to Scenic rides before, you go down to the More button in the bottom right hand corner right there, and you'll see Scenic rides, and you click View Routes. Now, one of the things Peloton noted as part of their keynote is that they found that the previous rides felt a bit stale, their words, not mine, and that the music pretty much sucked, and that was a paraphrase of their words as well. So they divided these Scenic rides up into 3 categories going forward. The first one is the guided rides, then down below that you've got distance rides, and then below that you have time rides. The time rides are basically like what they had before, except now more cinematic, according to them, versus the distance rides will automatically change the speed of the video based on what you're doing. But I really want to touch on the guided rides right there. They've only got 3 of them right now. They're filmed in Savannah, Big Sur, and Oahu in Hawaii there. And if we crack one of these open, you'll see that you've got an instructor right there leading this 30-minute ride. All the rides are pretty short right now in the guided category. Hopefully that'll expand later on. And then on the left-hand side, you've got music, info, the class plan, so you can see what the different kind of portions are, and the number of people down below in member activity. So once you've gone ahead and started one of these rides, there's a quick intro just to kind of get you situated like normal, and then from there you're out riding on real roads with one of the real instructors. And this is a little bit different than like Scenic rides that we've seen in other platforms where the camera is following what your bike is showing. In this case, the camera is kind of all over the place. Sometimes it's right next to the instructor, like you see right here. Other times it is in a drone above the instructor, and then sometimes it's in a car behind the instructor. It's sort of all over the place, and then sometimes you're just seeing the road ahead of you like the old school Scenic rides. I was prepared to be disappointed here, but it actually worked pretty well. It's basically like this kind of perfect blend of their existing coached workouts that are indoors, typically, versus these Scenic rides. But it's all pulled together with decent cinematography that sort of blends this whole thing together pretty seamlessly. Now there's a couple quick catches. Number one is all of the sessions right now in the guided session are pretty short, only 30 minutes in length at the most. Number two, these first sessions were all kind of too easy, at least like the Hawaii one I did here, the intensity wasn't there. Again, these are things they can easily address in other classes they've probably already filmed. Number three, there was a couple like weird edits where it would change camera angles and you would clearly see that he was, in the trees in 1 second, in the mid-sentence not be in the trees. That sort of thing wasn't quite perfect, as I would expect from a Scenic ride where you're trying to feel like you're on the ride with the coach. And then last but not least, one thing that may take away for a lot of people is there's no more leaderboards anymore. There's simply no leaderboards at all across any of the Scenic rides. Still, despite that, if they had longer classes with more intensity, I would absolutely do this again. This is definitely better than a typical Scenic ride that you would see, an outdoor ride, if you will, on most of the platforms where I'm just following the camera, because I've got this like social element of the coach looking at me, telling me what I'm supposed to be doing as I'm riding along. Okay, and a quick note, if you're finding this video interesting or useful, consider subscribing to the channel. An astounding 91.6% of you that watched the last Peloton video were not subscribed here. Just saying. Now, of course, there's one big downside here with the Scenic workouts. Peloton has pulled them from the digital app, meaning if you are a digital app only member, you're not going to see the Scenic rides anymore at all. Peloton says they did that because in the distance-based rides, those are dependent on the power from this to be able to change the speed of the video, which is fine, that makes sense, but that doesn't excuse why they remove the guided ones and the time-based ones, since those have no dependency on the bike itself. Still, that's the decision they've made. The good news though is that the next feature, the Strive score, is compatible across everything, no matter whether you have the app or the bike. Now you probably saw this on the left side of the screen in the previous section, and it's a score that basically aims to show how much time you're spending in each heart rate zone. The idea behind that is to give you points, if you will, for time spent in different heart rate zones. Each heart rate zone, as you go up, it increases the points. So zone 1 gets a 1x multiplier, zone 2 gets a 2x multiplier based on your time in that zone, zone 3 is a 4x multiplier, and zone 4 and 5 share a 8x multiplier. Peloton says they kept zone 4 and zone 5 the same multiplier in an attempt to kind of keep people from trying just to kill every single workout, because in any structural workout program, you need to have variation between high intensity days and low intensity days. Because if every day you're killing it, you're likely not to get fitter over the long term, you're likely just to get injured or sick instead. Now, one of the important things about Strive is it's available on all workout types, including strength workout, yoga, whatever it may be. Now, in some cases, that's not necessarily ideal, because in strength workouts, you actually want to have that recovery, versus a Strive score pretty much encourages you to go ahead and work even harder from a heart rate standpoint. So sometimes those two things aren't really balanced for what you should be doing compared to what the workout has you actually doing. Still, I think this is good overall, and it seems to set them up well for a Whoop competitor down the road. As you may know, Peloton's acquired a bunch of wearable companies and other kind of behind-the-scenes metric companies over the last 6 to 8 months, and it seems almost inevitable they're going to come out with some sort of wearable device or competitor in that space. I wouldn't expect to see that be like a full-fledged smartwatch, but probably something more along the lines of the Whoop Band, which is this right here. It goes ahead and tracks your metrics behind the scenes from a load and recovery standpoint. And note, of course, that this does require a heart rate strap or sensor. The Peloton Bike and Treadmills all support AMP Plus and Bluetooth Smart heart rate straps, and the Peloton Digital app supports Bluetooth Smart heart rate straps. Next, Peloton has revamped their programs. In the past, Peloton programs were basically just a collection of workouts I stuck in a folder and said, good luck. Versus now, it's an entire cohesive user interface around it. So you can see these are the programs before, so you've got Power Zone ones, Yoga, Core, all the different sections you previously had. But if we crack one open, you'll see it's divided up into weeks, and it actually tracks your progress within those weeks. Versus in the past, it was just up to you to go from one workout to the next workout. So you can see here, I finished my first class in this program, and it's got my second class ready to go there. I can skip a class if I want to, and then it shows me the recommended schedule at the top, and I can see each week going ahead, and it'll lock there because I haven't unlocked that particular week yet. But this particular week there, I can skip a class and just kind of keep on iterating through this. You'll get badges at the end, as well as a progress report shown for the entire class itself. You can always retake a class too if you want to, and that doesn't impact your score or your progress. Overall, this is a significant improvement of what they had in the past, which again, like I said, was just a collection of stuff thrown in a bucket and kind of said, you go and figure it out. This is clearly way more cohesive and along the lines of what you see in most cycling programs that have sort of some continuous journey from start to finish. Next, if you have a Tread or Tread Plus treadmill, there's now target metrics. That means at the bottom, you will see the metrics that you're supposed to be in for that particular target. This is something that they've had on the bike for a while now, but just simply coming over the treadmill as well. It's part of their homecoming weekend festivities, which is their annual weekend of stuff. They rolled out another feature that you probably won't see day to day, but is kind of neat when you do see it, which is the new special guest leaderboard feature. This allows you to go ahead and see the special guest that's part of that class. In this case, it was Usain Bolt. That was part of one of the classes this past weekend. And you can see the special guests on the leaderboard in the same way that you would filter other categories. You just go up to the top right-hand corner there and tap the special guest leaderboard. It's at this juncture that I had the only opportunity in my entire life to ever be ahead of Usain Bolt on any sort of athletic endeavor or leaderboard. So I definitely screenshotted that. And then last but not least is a pause button, but it's not there today. So right now, if you wanted to pause a class in Peloton, you basically exit the class and then you come back into the class. And it's super cumbersome. And there are many times when you want to pause, just like the doorbell rings or your kid wakes up, all the kind of things. And Peloton outlined those exact scenarios that have happened to me as well many, many times. But there's no good way to do that in the past. Versus coming sometime later this year, they're going to add a pause button. Now, as part of that pause button, one of the things that they said is they're working to ensure, quote, that the integrity of the leaderboard remains. And how they're going to do that, I don't really know. They haven't said either at this point, but I think there's probably a dividing line there between someone that goes and sits down on the couch for 10 minutes in between two intervals and someone that runs to the front door, grabs a package, and comes back in again in 18 seconds. Like, that's a different category. One's recovery, one's probably increasing your heart rate. So it'll be interesting to see if they can find a line there as to how to keep that leaderboard in place without going ahead and ruining the experience for both the rider or anyone else on the leaderboard. Okay, so there you go, a complete look at Peloton's early 2021, I guess mid 2021, May 2021 updates. If you found this interesting, go ahead and whack that like button at the bottom there, or hit the subscribe for plenty more sports technology goodness. With that, have a good one.